Europe has always believed that time had defeated geography. That technology, alliances, and globalization had finally erased the old rules of power. But history has a way of returning when it is least expected. Today, as tensions rise across the continent, Poland, Czechia, and Slovakia once again find themselves standing where empires collide. Not because they chose this position, but because geography chose it for them. These three countries sit at the very heart of Europe, along corridors that have determined wars, trade, and survival for centuries. From the plains that stretch eastward into Russia, to the mountain passes that open toward Western Europe, Central Europe has never been a safe place to stand when the world fractures. It is a bridge, a buffer, and often a battlefield. To understand why Poland, Czechia, and Slovakia are now on the brink, we must look beyond today's headlines and return to the map itself. The flat North European plain runs uninterrupted from France through Germany and Poland all the way into Russia. This single geographic feature has shaped European history more than any treaty ever signed. Armies have marched across it for centuries because there are no natural barriers to stop them. Napoleon used it, Hitler used it, and every strategist in Moscow and Brussels understands its significance even today. Poland lies directly on this plain. It has no mountains to shield it from the east, no oceans to protect it from invasion. This is why Poland has been partitioned, invaded, and erased from maps more times than almost any other European nation. Geography made Poland vulnerable long before politics did. That same vulnerability now makes Poland one of NATO's most militarized frontline states, hosting troops, missile systems, and logistics hubs aimed at deterring threats from the east. Czechia and Slovakia may seem safer at first glance, surrounded by mountains like the Carpathians and Sudets. But these ranges do not isolate them. Instead, they funnel movement through narrow corridors that have historically been used for trade, armies, and influence. Whoever controls these corridors controls the flow between Eastern and Western Europe. In times of peace, this brings prosperity. In times of crisis, it brings danger. As NATO expanded eastward after the Cold War, many believed geography no longer mattered. Borders moved, flags changed, and alliances grew. But rivers did not move. Mountains did not disappear. Energy routes still follow the easiest paths through terrain. Railways, pipelines, and highways still run through the same choke points that generals studied 100 years ago. Energy is one of the clearest examples of geography's revenge. For decades, Central Europe relied heavily on energy flowing from the east. Pipelines were built along routes dictated by terrain and cost, not politics. When relations were stable, this dependence seemed efficient. When relations broke down, it became a strategic weakness overnight. Poland invested heavily in LNG terminals and alternative routes, while Czechia and Slovakia found themselves scrambling to adapt systems designed for a different era. But energy is only one layer of the crisis. Military geography is another. Poland now serves as NATO's primary logistical artery into Eastern Europe. Troops, equipment, and supplies pass through its territory toward the alliance's eastern flank. This makes Poland essential for collective defense, but it also places it directly in the crosshairs of any potential escalation. Czechia and Slovakia play a quieter but no less critical role. Their airspace, infrastructure, and industrial capacity support NATO's broader posture. At the same time, their populations are more divided, their politics more fragile, and their economies deeply tied to both Western markets and Eastern supply chains. Geography gives them importance, but it also gives them vulnerability. On the other side of the map, Russia sees the same geography through a different lens. From Moscow's perspective, Central Europe has always been the gateway through which threats arrive. History reinforces this fear. Invasions have come from the west again and again. Buffer zones were once the solution. Today, those buffer zones are gone, replaced by NATO flags and military exercises closer than ever to Russian borders. This creates a classic security dilemma. Every move made by NATO to reassure Poland, Czechia, and Slovakia looks like a threat to Russia. Every move made by Russia to protect its perceived sphere of influence looks like aggression to Europe. Geography traps all sides in a cycle where defensive actions feel offensive to the other. What makes the situation especially dangerous is that modern warfare moves faster than geography can buffer. Missiles cross borders in minutes. Cyberattacks ignore terrain completely, yet supply lines, troop movements, and civilian populations are still rooted in physical space. Central Europe cannot escape its location, no matter how advanced the technology becomes. Internal pressures add another layer of instability. Poland has embraced a strong security posture, increasing defense spending and aligning closely with NATO and the United States. Czechia and Slovakia, meanwhile, face internal debates about sovereignty, military involvement, and economic priorities. Public opinion is fractured, shaped by history, media, and fear of becoming the next frontline. The European Union, built on the promise of integration and shared destiny, now faces its own geographic limits. Brussels can coordinate policy, but it cannot change where rivers flow or where borders lie. When crises emerge, frontline states feel them first and hardest. Central Europe knows this from experience, and that knowledge fuels anxiety as global tensions rise. Trade routes that once symbolized unity now represent exposure. Rail lines connecting east and west can carry goods in one moment and military equipment in the next. Ports, warehouses, and factories become strategic assets. Geography turns everyday infrastructure into potential targets during conflict. Even history itself weighs heavily on the region. Memories of occupation, betrayal, and abandonment are not abstract here. They are taught in schools, remembered in families, and reflected in political choices. Geography made Central Europe a crossroads, but history made it cautious, sometimes fearful, and often determined never to be powerless again. As global power shifts and old assumptions collapse, the illusion that Europe had outgrown its map is fading. The continent is rediscovering an uncomfortable truth: peace does not eliminate geography, it only quiets it temporarily. When tensions rise, the map begins to speak again. Poland, Czechia, and Slovakia are not merely reacting to events. They are responding to forces that have shaped their destinies for centuries. Geography is not destiny, but it sets the stage upon which destiny is fought over. Alliances may change, leaders may come and go, but the land remains. The question facing Europe today is not whether geography matters, but whether Europe can manage its consequences without repeating its darkest chapters. Central Europe once again stands between great powers, between fear and resolve, between history and an uncertain future. And as the pressure builds, one thing becomes clear: the fate of Europe is not being decided only in capitals and conference rooms. It is being decided by rivers, plains, corridors, and borders that have never stopped shaping the continent's story. If history is a warning, then Central Europe is the alarm bell. And the map is ringing louder than ever.